Welcome to another episode of the Hospitality Mentor Podcast, and I've been waiting for this one. I've got Omri Shalev, the co-founder and CTO at Reeco. Omri, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
I've been in your offices. You're creating something really special, and I want to start this a little bit differently than I always do. I'd rather you tell the audience a little bit, not everything, but just what is Reeco? What are you working on and building right now?
So I think in a nutshell, Reeco is trying to simplify the hospitality operation side, trying to bring the back of the house to the front in a way. And in a nutshell, is basically purchasing, receiving, managing your invoices, your recipes, and inventory count in one single place.
I love it. See, it's not the sexiest of all things, but it's definitely one of the most time consuming for sure of all of our hotel operations. I think I've spent many hours sitting there putting GL codes and things. And if you're in hotels, you know exactly what I'm talking about in food and beverage or in purchasing. But I want to get to that later on, right? I want to hear about how you got here, why you started doing this. But let's go back to why you were not in hospitality. You've been in technology basically your entire career. Can you give us a little bit of a background on where you started?
Yeah, so my journey started when I was about 15. I lived in Mexico City, and for the first time I was introduced to coding. I fell in love, and from that moment on I knew that I'm going to solve challenges in my life with software. Since then I've been moving around different startups and other big companies such as Samsung and Microsoft. And basically all my life was all about coding and software engineering, nothing to do actually with hospitality. My partner is an hotelier, and we were talking as friends. And he mentioned that in his properties, the one that his grandfather built 45 years ago in Israel, in his property, the way that they do their purchasing is horrible. They text, they email, they call multiple suppliers every day just to make sure that their food and beverage items and cleaning supplies reach to their destination or to the hotel. And I was shocked, obviously, because I come from a world where everything is very efficient, AI all over, where technology is the first priority. And first of all, I thought it was only in his property, and then we figure out this is something huge. And this is how Reeco started.
Man, so I want to go back to when you're 15-year-old and you're doing coding. Are you the person like that would come to and say, "Hey, I want to build a website," and you're building websites? Or are you doing like games? Like, what were you creating back then?
So it's funny to say, but I was a late bloomer, 15, when I just started into the computer world. But I wasn't the person that you come to when your computer breaks. I would just be the person that play soccer all day long and have fun. But when I just started to see how coding, which basically is like art, you just sit down and you can invent whatever you want, starting from building websites to more sophisticated coding. And it's incredible.
And so you were doing this. You grew up in Mexico City, or did you grow up in Israel? Where were you growing up?
So I was growing up in Israel. When I was 15, I moved to Mexico City for a couple of years. I was in high school over there. And then I came back to Israel, and now I'm in Miami.
Wow. So you picked it up when you were in Mexico. Is that right?
Yes, and finally I get to use my Spanish, so it's even better.
Hablas español. You see, so good for Miami. So
Yes.
what made you enjoy that? Because that's very specific, right? A lot of kids, like you said, you're playing soccer, you're outdoors. It's two different things at that age. What gets you starting on that track of being in the world of technology?
I think that the curiosity and on challenges and finding problems to solve, I think this is something that really led me into this world of coding. In Israel, there is a huge tech scene. So when wherever you go, you hear about people who are software engineers and who has startups. And it's just something that just drives you when you have people around you every day talking about new ideas and different entrepreneurship projects that they are working on. I think altogether made me who I am right now. So both Israel, the coding itself, those who get into coding, it's very hard at the beginning, but once you get into it, it's a beautiful world.
So what is it about Israel? Like I've been to Tel Aviv, I've been there. It seems like a fun place. What is it that it seems like there is a tech scene. It's not a big country, but it seems like so many of the pieces of software that we use day to day. Like I remember hearing like the first one that sticks in my mind is like Waze, right? It was like formed over there. Why is it that it's such a big thing in Israel?
So I think it starts in the roots of the country. The entire country is basically a startup by itself. In 1948, it started this way. If you look at the map, Israel is basically located in the middle of the desert, and it flourished, and it's a beautiful flower, in my opinion, today. And I think that it started this way, and it's some sort of a melting pot where you have different people coming from Egypt, from Europe, from many places, and they all bring different cultures and different ideas. And the fact that you're such a small country and you have what, 6, 7, 8 million people over there, and the competition is so hard, and you have very smart people, those things create, in a way, some sort of an entrepreneurship kind of spirit, I think. And this what made Israel very kind of tech forward and startup nation that everyone know.
Is that taught in school? Because I know you said you went to high school really in Mexico City. Was that like part of the program that they sent you there? Or how did that end up happening?
Yeah, so I think like any other school in Mexico, at least, we had great programs for computers and things to do with many kinds of different topics. In Israel, you do have computers as well. Most Israelis can go to a specific computers route in the army. So in the army, you actually get to learn some of
That's right.
the craziest things out there, and you can become eventually. This is why, if you look at Israel, you have a lot of cybersecurity, for example, startups, because in the army, you get the chance not only to learn, but you have proper hands-on experience when it comes to coding.
Everyone has to join the army, not just men. It's everybody that's a
Yep.
citizen, correct?
Mandatory, yes.
And you get to choose what you want to learn, or they put you where they think the strong suit is.
So they try to put you where the strongest suit is based on what you did in high school. If you like computers, based on your feet. So if you're healthy and things like this, you might be sent away to different areas. But they do try to obviously to maximize your profile and make sure that you're in the right spot.
So which way did you end up going?
So my world was a little bit different. I wasn't in computers, unfortunately. I arrived too late to Israel before the army, but I was in a different department that was actually in charge of stopping people who are trying to escape the country and avoiding the army. So we
Wow.
do have a section for that. I was some sort of an undercover detective in the airport. So yes, don't avoid the authorities unless
Omri,
you
I'm
want to find me.
a little nervous right now, Omri. You got me a little bit nervous. I don't want to mess with you here. So you're doing that. When do you get out of being in the army? 'Cause I think, how long is it? Is it a year or 2 years? I forget how long you have to be there.
So 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
So you get out. Is that when you start working in software right away? Once you get out?
Yeah, so I was doing some other things while I was a soldier. I was into coding a lot, as I mentioned, and basically, I think that after a year or two, when I finished my military service, I just went full on with coding, started to self-educate myself. I even did my computer science degree, and throughout those years, I started to move between different startups, learning different type of coding techniques, and eventually I end up at Samsung and then Microsoft.
Yeah. So talk to me about that. What's it like? Because you talk about going startup. It's a very different world than when you get to Samsung, right?
Yeah.
How is that changed once you arrive at Samsung and then into Microsoft? What is that like for you?
So if we'll take it into the hospitality world, it's like working for a moms and pops or independent hotel compared to a big corporate. Everything obviously is much slower, but the budgets are higher, so you get to see different side of the industry. So I think that I had I'm always very privileged to work for startups that had very low budgets, but the technology was one of the best compared to working to a big corporate where budgets were very high and you could do basically every idea that came into your head, you could build and solve. And one of the things that I was doing in Microsoft was actually their cloud-based marketplace. So all the goods and things that you buy on the cloud, the different software went through this department. We're talking about probably billions going from one side of the world to the other. And that was a crazy experience.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit because I think so many people, wonder what it's like working at one of these big companies, right? They hear the tech companies and all the things that go on. And you were working on something big. Like you were part of a team that was 15 at the Azure marketplace and it got up to 120 people within Microsoft. What is it like working at a place like this? Is it really like what it shows on TV where it's like lounges and stuff like that? Or is it like you're in a cubicle just grinding all day?
No, so we had our nice places over there. You had a basketball, you had great drinks, massage, and all that. But you do work very hard, hours and hours every single day. Even sometimes during holidays, you need to provide to make sure that you stick up to the very high phase that you have in those startups or big companies. In Microsoft, I was privileged because it was a small group of 15 people, and we were in a way kind of restructuring and building the entire marketplace over there. And then it started to grow very quickly, and we became, I think, more than 100 people in less than 6 months. So it started as a startup where everyone is doing lots of different things, and then eventually we became a little bit more organized. And
That's
yeah, it was
crazy.
a crazy experience.
And you're there 2019 to 2021 in March, which is like through the pandemic when Teams blew up and all the technology blew up. Was that anything that affected your world? Is that why you guys grew so much, or was it just happened to be Microsoft was your team was growing?
Yeah, so Microsoft is a huge company. We're talking about over 200,000 employees worldwide. Israel is actually the second biggest site that they have. The biggest one is in Seattle, and the second one is in Israel. My world and in Microsoft, even if you move to a different room, you can see an entire different group that works on a different product. You have Excel, you have Teams, you have lots of different stuff. So it feels like you're moving to a completely different company when you're just going to a different room in the same floor. So my Teams has nothing to do with me, but Teams was sold in the same marketplace that I
Right.
was in charge of.
That's cool. So you're doing that. You're working in the big company. I want to talk about this transition now to Reeco because for you, you're working at one of the world's, you said, biggest companies in the world, highest market cap at different times, depending on what Elon Musk is doing, right? Cushy gig, you got massages, basketball courts, great things going on. Why do you make this change? You touched on it a little bit. How do you end up being the co-founder of Reeco?
So I think that it started by me being 15 and falling in love for the first time with coding. And the main reason for that was solving challenges through software. I find it very interesting and fun. And all the way up to working for Microsoft, it was 10 years of learning a lot of coding techniques and seeing basically how you can build a very large enterprise company end to end. Because seeing those millions and billions of dollars going through your from one side of the world to the other every single day just make you think, wow, this is doable. I was part of the infrastructure and this software, so I really think that I can do something on my own. And when they say, I think I said it a couple of times in other podcasts that I was in, luck in life is when opportunity meets readiness. And basically, I was ready and I was just waiting for the right opportunity. And I think that the opportunity that came was with my partner, Henrik, was an atelier. And this industry in general, hospitality, I'm sure everyone can relate with me, lacks a lot of technology and it's very inefficient. Although beautiful from the outside, most properties from the inside are just trying to make sure you as a guest feel that everything is very smooth and seamless. But we're talking about managing so many people, manual processes, coding invoices. So for me, it was the perfect opportunity to bring my expertise in software and solve those challenges.
So a lot of people have dreams like, oh, I'm going to start something, I'm going to make something. And then they have their family and friends who tell, oh, that's crazy. You're working at a great company. Did you have that happen to you, or was your family and friends supportive of you jumping ship to start this crazy new company?
So one of the biggest tips that I can give any entrepreneur is not to share your ideas with friends and families unless they have something important and smart to contribute. Because most people, and this is part of our DNA, is to go into the solid known place and kind of not in a bad way try to bring you down, because obviously I'm sure that your family want the very best for you, but I think that sometimes they're just scared. And being an entrepreneur is doing or making changes although you're afraid, and being brave a little bit. So I think that at the beginning, and my friends will tell you that, is that I didn't share much. I didn't share about the idea. It was mainly me, Henrik, and the people around us, and we were only consulting with people from the hospitality industry or the tech world who can really share good insights and not bring us down.
I think that's great advice. I think if you're just listening to that, rewind that 30 seconds to a minute, because that's a great advice Omri gave you just now, for real. Because a lot of people don't want to see you succeed. So I'm happy that you shared that. So I want to go back to where you said, all right, you found Heinrich, right? You guys are co-founding this. How does that happen? Is it over some beers out on streets in Tel Aviv? Is it because you're hanging out playing soccer somewhere? Bring me back to that moment to where you say, hey, let's start this company.
So we were talking, I think I was sharing with Henrik, my father-in-law has a restaurant in Israel, and I was just asking him one day, how do you buy your goods for your restaurant? And he was telling me, I call this guy and he brings me the produce. I call this guy and he brings me the protein. I call this guy, he brings me the bleach. And I told him, wow, you're calling many guys just to get simple operation stuff. So we were chatting and talking, and I told him, as someone who's in the software world, maybe I can build you an app. And I told that to Henrik, as him being my friend. And he said, are you crazy? You know how it works in my properties. We buy $100,000 every single month, taxing, emailing, doing the exact same thing as my father's-in-law restaurant is doing, but in bigger scale. And we were talking, and like every good idea, nothing happened. I think it has been like 3 4 months since that moment that we actually did something about it, because we were very thrilled about the idea. We were talking about it for 2 3 weeks, and then we all came back. I came back to Microsoft. I was super busy. Came back to the property. You know how it is with hotels. You're very busy
Internet.
putting out fires all day long. You don't have time for a startup right now. And it took us probably 3 4 months until we actually got into a position where we said, you know what, I feel that we are done and we should really do it. And we managed to I brought a very good friend of mine from university. He brought his very good friend from his university. Henrik studied hospitality and management, so he brought someone from this world. And I studied computer science, so I brought the VP R&D today to the table. So we were the four of us trying to change and disrupt the operation side of the hospitality world.
It's amazing. So are you just meeting in the hotel, like with a whiteboard? Like I'm trying to picture like the music's going, you guys are erasing things on the board. Let's connect this like mind map. Is that what it was like when you were starting?
Yeah, more like in Henrik's parents' building. We were sitting over there with a whiteboard, just trying to think about ideas, trying to bring in our contact list whoever we can consult with that makes sense to talk with, and basically starting in a garage mode.
I love it. So is it just you coding, you and your part, the one that you brought on, like putting things together using
Yeah.
Microsoft tools or using other things? Like how do you start putting this together once you have an idea?
Yeah, so basically, we were thinking about the idea. We were designing a little bit the screens and what we want to do. We obviously had Henrik's Hotels as a pilot, so it was very good start for us.
Yep.
And basically, we took all the piece of papers that we wrote, all the good ideas. We started to sketch them in nice screens. And basically, Dor and I, who was the VP R&D, we just started to make the dreams come true. It took us a couple weeks. We made up the first prototype and we tested it on Henrik's Hotel, and we were managed to save between 12 to 19% just by splitting the basket in an optimal algorithm to make sure that they do their purchasing right.
It's unreal. So in the tech world, for people who are not familiar, did you build like just the MVP was the most viable product, or was it something that had a little bit more tools and fancy, like what it looks like
Yeah,
now?
so very MVP, if you can say.
Okay. So very raw product that you start with. How does is Heinrich running the operation so he doesn't have to convince his parents that he's doing this or his family, or does he have to convince anybody? Because sometimes, like, we're running a hotel here, we don't have time to play with this toy. How did it
Yeah.
go?
So I think that once you talk with any hotelier and you ask them, how do you do your purchasing today? And you can see by his face that he is very frustrated because it's so hard to run everything with pen and paper, just
Yes.
making sure that you find the right supplier every single time. So it was very easy to convince them. We see today, even when we talk with chefs and food and beverage directors, it's very easy to convince someone that you have a very good tool for him to make his life easier. So same over there. We just show them the capability. And when they saw the 12, 15%, 19% of saving every single time, they were in.
I love it. So give us a little bit of the background at the very beginning. So you're saying we're saving 12 and 15% for Heinrich's Hotel. How did you figure out how to do this? Because that's a giant number. It's not just like, oh, we came up with it. How did that happen?
So we were sitting a lot with the chefs, just trying to understand how they do their purchasing. And what we saw is that they're walking around with a pen and paper in their different storerooms and saying, okay, I need a banana, I need ham, I need apple, I need this and this. And they basically memorize the process of who they should order from. Now, let's say they have 20 or 30 suppliers in their property, ones that bring produce and the other one that brings protein, but you have overlaps. So some suppliers might bring the exact same product, but since you're just memorizing and just going directly to the same supplier, then you're losing a lot of good opportunities here to use your own suppliers. I'm not even saying opening it up to an open marketplace where you have every supplier in the world. Just from your own existing suppliers, you can make your purchasing a little bit more optimized. And what we did was to build the basket from every supplier once you check out, but also something that is very unique in our software is that you're able to split your basket considering minimum order, delivery days, cutoff times, and things like this based on the contracts that you have with the suppliers to find the most optimal checkout. And this is how we saved those numbers.
Yeah, it is very cool once I saw it. But you have this product now. You're starting in Heinrich's Hotel. When do you get to the point where you feel brave enough to be like, all right, it worked here. Let's find our next client. How did that start happening?
Yeah, so in the tech world, the way that it works is that you want to run as fast as you can and build the strongest software. So in order for you to do that, the second thing after you have your first prototype is basically to raise money. And raising money, this is a complete different art by itself. But we managed to raise about $10 million just based on the idea. I can save that
Wow.
for a complete different podcast together,
Yep.
just telling you how that's done. But it was a crazy roadshow. It took us about 2-3 months until we raised that amount. And basically, with that amount, we started building, recruiting more people. And eventually, Israel is very nice, but we only have 432 hotels. So the US was the go to market. So with that money and with that idea, we moved to Miami.
I love it. I want to rewind a little bit because you glazed on it. We don't have to go through the whole pitch and what the pitch deck looks like and all these things. But for some people listening, like, all right, well, they raised $10 million. Of course, they're going to build something awesome. But how many meetings did it take for you to do this? Because you just touched on it. It can be a grind. How many meetings do you think you had to go and get rejected from?
Yeah, so I think we went over in 2-3 months. It was roughly 80 meetings with different investors from different sizes, small angel investors, all the way to big VCs, until we figure out who are the right people for us as well.
And usually, I don't know if it's the same as yours, right? It was you need someone to be the lead investor before everybody else joins in because nobody wants to be that first one. Is that kind of what you saw when you were going?
Yeah, so we started the way that it starts, like in life, you need to have someone who really believes in you, and then they bring over their colleagues, friends who can be co-leads or just invest as well with you. So luckily we find some very good people in the ecosystem in Israel, and we managed to get our first investment from there. And since then, we also raised more money from a VC in New York. So we became a little bit more global.
I love it. So when you got that first raise, were you all celebrating, or was it also the realization of, oh man, we just raised 10 million. Now we have to go do this. What was it like?
Yeah, it was more like the second option. We were very happy, but it's a process. So you don't raise the 10 million in one day. You're built into that process. So it takes you 3 more months until you can figure out everything, and then you understand that now you're not alone. It's not just me and Henrik. We also have other investors that we need to make sure that they also see the exact same vision that we have. And but it also comes with great pros, because you can now consult with people who are very smart, who made hundreds of millions of dollars because they have successful businesses. So I think that altogether can really help us understand that we are aiming to the top of the top, and it really help us get there, I think.
I love it. So you've raised this money. You say, all right, we're going to move to the United States, not Europe, not other areas, but the United States. And somehow you end up in my hometown of Miami. How did you choose that of all places in the world?
Basically, the weather, that was the biggest factor.
Yep.
But it was when COVID hit, and I think that Miami was probably one of the best places to be in, just because they didn't care about COVID and the hospitality was booming. And I think in general, if even regardless of COVID, if you look at Miami, it's a great place to be. You have so many hotels per square feet. Even you have in Miami Beach probably over 100 or 200 of properties, and they all do, most of them do full service. So they have bars and pools, and they do a lot on food and beverage. So it was a very good pick for us. And also it's closer, the closest that you can get to Israel. So in terms of time difference, because we have engineers and product and designers in Israel, so it was very important to keep the time difference as close as possible.
So how did you decide who was going to be here in Miami? How did you decide? Because you have your team. Did someone raise their hand and say, I'm going to go? Or did you have to get like pull straws, like they say here? How did you choose?
So usually the way it works is that engineers, product, and designers stay in Israel, just because we have very good, talented people over there, and that's the way it usually is. And sales and customer success is mainly here in the US, because obviously you need people who speak proper English with the right accent, not like mine, and make sure that you have that kind of distribution of people, the software engineers and product design over there, and here the real Americans, the one that knows how to talk with the same culture here.
You got it down. Miami, you got Miami style down, Omri. I met you in person and people can see on this video. All right. So you're here in Miami. You start hunting, right? Because that's now you got to find these new hotels. You get, I know you got a couple hotels. Was it right away? Did it take one? How did it start? Because I know a lot of people are always wondering, like, man, how does that really get going as you leave your home base to come to a new country?
Yeah, so you know what they say about hotels. If you want to sell to one hotel, you need to sell to his neighbor first. And this is kind of the chicken and egg problem. Obviously, when you're coming as a young startup at the beginning, no one really wants to be the first one to test your software. But you do have a lot of tech forward people who understand the vision and want to be part of something big. Uh, Although we have a lot of hoteliers who are super traditional and they just want to make sure everything works, which is perfectly fine, and I respect that. Others just here for the adventure. And I think that by joining first, you have the ability to kind of tailor made the solution and make it suit your needs in a way that you cannot probably get it from big corporate company that has been there for 20 years. They're not going to do those customizations for you. They're not going to give you that VIP treatment. And if you are smart enough to seize the opportunity, you basically got yourself a bunch of talented engineers to build your dreams.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it. And for listeners, I saw it 2 years ago when it was not where it is today, and I was very impressed. And I just recently saw it like 3 weeks ago, the newest version, which is ultra impressive. But you'd be pitching to me. I used to be food and beverage director, executive for big hotels, and I'm sure you come into my office and I'd be like, "Look, I don't even have time to talk to you right now. We're so short staffed. I don't have any people. The kitchen, we're looking for cooks." What do you say to people that are telling you guys this?
So I think that in 2024, we are seeing a better trend of people who really understand that it's time not to just do the inventory count because you have to do an inventory count, but to actually get something out of the audit that you do every month. Same goes with recipe management. It's time that you stop writing things on piece of paper, on Excels, and just hoping that the price somehow gets updated. So I think that it comes from both the ground, which are the users, the chefs, the housekeeping managers, who just want to have much easier, simplified life. Also consider that lots of younger generation is coming into those areas, and they're so used to ordering with Amazon and Instacart, and all of a sudden they go to their work and they order with pen and paper. So it didn't make sense for them. But if you look at the other side of owners and GMs, they've realized that, you know what, I have a very bad transparency of what's going on in those departments. I put so much effort on bringing new guests, I put so much money on marketing, but there is a huge revenue leakage when it comes to the back of the house. So in 2024, I see a better and bigger trends towards technology. And I think that one of the scariest things for a hotelier is long onboarding and you over promising things. And for us, it's very important to bring 2024 in those areas as well. So onboarding, for example, with us takes 7 days. So you don't need to wait 6-8 months until you see the results. If you want to try it for 30 days, go ahead, try it. If you don't like it, stop. There is nothing to lose over here. But I rest assure you that after 30 days of ordering with an app through your storerooms, you're never going to go back to pen and paper. So that's what I try to tell chefs who are afraid of changes. Try it for 30 days. It takes us 7 days to onboard you, and the rest you'll see it works like a magic.
Yeah, it's true. It is like magic. Some of my favorite things on it, and I'm sorry I'm taking over the interview here just 'cause I want to make sure people understand here, is that one, I can place an order. If it's not available, it gives me multiple options. If I do place an order, it also shows me things that are the same thing from other providers that I'm already working with that may be cheaper. I can do live food costs, so my recipes are automatically getting updated based off of the food cost of things that are already out there. So I don't have to guess what my food cost is going to be when my general manager asks me every month, and I'm like praying that my food cost is good at the end of the month. I
Exactly.
know what it'll be like. And I just think that you have so much cool AI built into this that's suggesting things and learning as things go. Can you talk a little bit about that learning that it's doing for me as I'm trying to be more efficient?
Yeah. So as part of us finding inefficiencies every day, talking with chefs and accounts payable and controllers, we found, for example, one example is gel coding. When I first introduced to gel coding, I was shocked. I couldn't believe that someone actually sits down with a ruler and a marker over 400 or 500 invoices every month and just memorize 9-digit number and basically goes manually one by one. And we're talking about that manual process and then inputting everything into your accounting system like M3, for example. And those can take you probably between 8 to 12 days every month, just processing invoices and
Yep.
coding and inputting that into the accounting system.
And I want to cut you off for 1 second. I'll let you go back. Just for listeners, because you may not know what a GL code is. It's the general ledger, and everything in a hotel is assigned a code. So linen, just say in your hotel is GL code 300. Silverware is GL code 301 and on for every single item, and you have to do that by hand. And everyone right now, a lot of people use M3, like he's saying. Some people use Excel sheets that have every GL code in, and you have people that are just responsible for putting these in all day. It's really one of the worst things as part of the operation where you could be spending time on the floor. You're spending hours in the back worrying if the code is correct so you don't get dinged when you do your P&L review. Anyhow, Omri, sorry, that used to drive me crazy.
And it's crazy because you're right. Going over those invoices, it's easy, right? You go invoice by invoice, but every invoice has a different layout. So one invoice, the total price is at the top corner. The one is at the bottom corner. You have different type of invoices. So what we did basically was bringing AI into this world where you can easily just push all your invoices, scan them with our mobile app, or just forward them from your email to our tool. And what it does is just geocodes automatically everything for you. And in 2 clicks, you sync it into the accounting system so you can continue on from there. So instead of you doing it for 8 to 12 days every month, with us, it probably takes us you to review 500 invoices somewhere between 2 to 3 hours every month. So we're talking about saving lots and lots of time here and obviously money to improve your bottom line. So this is just one example of us using AI to learn your coding patterns and see based on that, how can I forecast and give you an automatic GL coding based on AI process. And it sounds crazy, but for you, it's very easy because everything is done behind the scene, obviously, on our side. You just push the invoice, it's being coded automatically, and you sync. That's it.
Yeah.
20 seconds.
So I want to get before I ask you, I'm gonna tell you my favorite tool I think I saw so far. I want to get what your favorite tool is on there. And I don't want you to tell me that's like my children, they're all my favorite, right? But what I like, it was almost like a dating app. So, listeners, when you receive products to the hotel, now we're getting to the nitty gritty here. So, if you receive products, usually so you have a purchasing department, but a lot of times it's the chef that has to receive stuff on the loading dock and then like go through the invoice and check off with a pen that everything arrived there. And if it didn't get there, they got to go back and call that vendor that it's not there. Now with this, it's almost like a dating app where you swipe left or right depending on if the thing got there, and then it lets the company know that they didn't receive it. And Reeco is helping you do that. So I thought that was pretty cool, really easy because I've seen so many chefs to spend so many hours going through the palette of food when it arrives. What's one of your favorite tools?
So recently we launched our recipe manager. And when we were talking with one of the management group that we work with, they mentioned that they want to have a recipe management. And we didn't even know what that means. And they showed us that they have an Excel with a picture of the recipe. And then in the recipe, they put the ingredients. And last time they updated the prices of the ingredients was 8 months ago. And now, since we have all your suppliers in one single store, I can easily know what are the prices for every ingredient. But more than that, if you purchase through my platform, I can know what's the average price paid. So if you do, let's say you buy an apple 5 times throughout the month, and every time you pay a different price because of different packaging or stuff like this, then you need to get the average price paid. Now, with this recipe, what we are doing is basically connecting one side to the ingredients cost and the other side to your POS system. So we can tell you in real time what's your food cost for that dish and also what's your gross margin. So if, for example, one of the prices of ingredient goes up, you can immediately tell and send you an alert that your gross margin or food cost is going up and down, and you probably need to do something about it unless you want to lose more money. So I think the recipe, it started as a very kind of naive tool where you just manage all your recipes over there, but then connecting the dots with the purchasing and your POS, it became something super strong. So that's, I think, what happens when you build a software very close to the property, but also to the corporate management and the entire chain. So you can build something that someone really needs and use every day.
Yeah, so we talked about GL codes taking 8 to 12 days, all this ordering taking hours a day. You may not have it down to a science. You might. How much time are we saving here? Right? This is what we really want to get to. Like, how much are we actually saving here? How much are we saving on the products? Like, if I'm a GM and I say, hey, how much am I actually going to save? What are we looking at?
So I think that if I'm looking at numbers like you ordering, let's say, full service hotel that they order, let's say every week, couple of orders, instead of you taking the time to place an order through multiple apps, punch outs, website, emails, you can do it only in one single place. So let's talk about a property that buy on average $50 to $100,000 per month, which generates around 200 to 300 invoices out of those suppliers that you work with, and you do an inventory count of, let's say, 500 products. Those are the numbers that we have from case studies. You can easily get between $100 to $150,000 saved just from the time. Because if you consider an average salary for, let's say, $80,000 per controller per year, and chefs that can be executive chefs that can be way more expensive, you can easily save those amount of money every year just by using the technology. And I'm not even talking about the other things that we help you optimize, which is finding the right suppliers from your pool of suppliers. You have very good local suppliers sometimes that you want to take advantage of, and you have some other deals with the broadline suppliers, especially if you work with a GPO. So you want to maximize your rebates with that GPO, and we can help you get there. We set, when in the pre-onboarding, what we do is that we set the goals together, and you tell us, I want to be more compliant for my GPO. How do I do that? Or I want to spread my eggs a little bit better and have more suppliers. How can I do that? And we build that with you until you get into those points where you're saving real big money here every month.
Yep. And for listeners too, because I'm going to go back as like, just teaching as GPOs are like purchasing groups. So think of like the Avendras out there that everyone seems to be using, or some other groups out there.
Yep.
Everyone, not everyone, but a lot of hotels use them. So he works with them. So Reeco works with them, not against them. That's what I love seeing, that you're incorporating your technology into hitting people's goals. Because I know a lot of us out there have goals based on those GPOs that we have to hit. So it's good that you're helping us get there. So listen, we talked a lot about what you're doing now. I want to talk a little bit general, and then we'll get to the general. But what are you most excited about for your company? Not in the next 5 years, but let's say in the next 12 months. What are you most excited about for Reeco?
So I think keep on doing a very good product and improving every section out of it. Getting feedback from our users every day is something that we live for. The engineers in Israel are just waiting to hear something new that is coming. We're always improving. Every single month you see a bunch of new features coming out. We have payment solution for those who are pre-qualified. This is something that we're launching very soon. So not only you'll be able to do your purchasing with us, but you'll also be able to pay. So it's going to be all the way from purchasing, receiving, recipes, inventory, accounts payable, and payment in one single place to your vendors. So you don't need to go outside Reeco. That playing a little bit with the insights and data and showing you in very easy numbers and graphs what's going on in your operation and in your property. Those are things that we're working on constantly with our clients. So yeah, I think just improving and bringing more and more values for our existing customer. I think this is the best thing that I can hope for us.
Yeah, and if you're listening, I would tell you, look, it's not a commercial. I like what they're doing. I like what they're making. I think you need to contact Omri and his team at Reeco, because just saving the time, like, it really helps your team. They're already stressed out from all the things they have to do. There's a million jobs open, 1 million hospitality jobs open just in the United States. And so
Wow.
using tools that make people more efficient is what I love championing. So in 2024, general, what do you see happening in technology? Hotels getting better with technology? Because you mentioned like younger people are getting in and they want better tools, or do you see it staying stuck in the old ways?
Yeah, so I think that hoteliers are getting smarter every single day. I see workshops of hoteliers in their conferences talking about ChatGPT, which is incredible to see
Yep.
chefs building menus using ChatGPT image generators. So I think this is a huge step into this industry. But not only that, you can even see that GPOs are leaning towards technology more now, and even suppliers. Some of them, not sure if you work with some very old protocol to transfer data between software or the hotels, and they're moving forward and they want to become more and more technological. So I think this is a very good time to be in right now, and I do expect to see in 2024 more companies joining this ecosystem. And not only the front of the house you have plenty of AI and crazy things going on, but the back of the house where there is no light and it's very dark over there. So we are trying to bring some light from the front to the back. And this is why we like to say we bring the back of the house to the front.
I love it. I love that tagline. So you, Omri, I know you have a lot going on. You've got a lot of clients to get to. But if you were young Omri, 15-year-old is coding today, and he's starting on your team as an intern, what advice are you giving young Omri?
So I think consistency is probably the most important thing. It's very hard to disrupt and change and do big things. And I see lots of young people trying to be famous or be rich very quickly over TikTok. And there is a phrase saying it takes 10 years to become an overnight sensation. And I really think that you need to be consistent with what you're doing. And I'm reading a really good book that is explaining that if you bring value to the world or bring something back to you, it can be either respect, fulfillment, money, every single thing. So as long as you're consistent and you bring value to the world, you'll get something back. And I think this is what I would tell him.
That's great advice and a great place to end our conversation. Omri, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited about what you're creating, and it's been amazing to see it evolve just in the last year and a half, 2 years. If somebody wants to connect with you, what's the best place for them to do that?
Probably go over our website, leave their details over there, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Omri, very grateful you spent this time with us. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate you.